Unpopular opinion. Some of us are not being nice. We're being unclear. We're not being, quote, humble. We're being hesitant. We're not being easy to work with. Rather, we're being in a situation we're constantly asking for permission to exist. Here's the part that might sting a little. Some of the way we speak is not personality, it's from programming. You can love Jesus and still sound like fear is leading the conversations. You can be gifted, called, educated, experienced, and anointed, and still walk into a room and communicate as if you're waiting for someone else to give you approval for your assignment. And before you say, well, Cheryl, I'm just trying not to be arrogant, let me open this up. What if the thing you keep calling humility is actually agreement with insecurity? What if your tone, your disclaimers, your over-explaining, your nervous laughter, your constant, does that make sense? What if they're just revealing an identity that's old that you're still living from? Because scripture doesn't call us to be arrogant, but it also doesn't call us to shrink. It says, let our yes be yes and our no be no. Let your yes not be wrapped in 17,000 disclaimers so nobody gets uncomfortable. Welcome back to Salt and Light, Rewired Mind, Restored Life. I'm Cheryl Gomes, and I'm a counselor, faith and fitness leader, author, and founder of Salt and Light. And today, we're going after something very practical, but yet very spiritual. Low authority language. Not so we can become loud, harsh, obnoxious. No. So we can stop using our own words to reinforce an old identity. Today, we're going to reveal the habit, reset the root, renew the way we speak, and restore our voices back to stewarding it well. Because your voice is not just sound. Your voice stewards. Your voice carries leadership or not. Your voice carries clarity. Your voice carries assignment. And if the enemy cannot take your calling, he will often try to make you whisper it, soften it, apologize for it, bury it, hide from it, hide in self-doubt. So the core learning is very simple today. You don't need to dominate the room, but you need to stop disappearing in it. Let's go. The first low authority habit is this, over-apologizing. Now, I'm not talking about repentance. I'm not talking about owning sin. I'm not talking about acknowledging being rude or refusing to take responsibility. I'm talking about the kind of apology that has become like a reflex. Sorry, can I ask a question? Or sorry, I just wanted to say, sorry, but this might be dumb. Sorry, I know you're busy, but sorry, I don't want to bother you. At some point, sorry stops being kindness and starts being like self-abuse, especially Christian women. We need to hear this clearly. You don't have to apologize for having a thought. You don't need to apologize for taking up your space. You don't need to apologize for asking clear questions. You don't need to apologize for having a voice. There's a difference between being considerate and diminishing. And some of us learned to survive by staying small. Maybe in your home, your voice was inconvenient. Maybe in your relationships, you were punished for speaking out. Maybe even in church spaces, leadership was only welcome from you if it was soft enough, quiet enough, agreeable enough, and wrapped in enough disclaimer and pink fluff. Maybe at work, if you spoke clearly, you were called intense, and now you cushion everything. But here's the problem. When you constantly apologize before you speak, you train people to hear you as an interruption, and that's not wisdom. That's an identity leak. Try this instead. Instead of saying, sorry, can I ask a question? Say, I have a question. Instead of, sorry, I just wanted to add, say, I'd like to add something here. Instead of saying, sorry, this may not make sense, but say, here's what I'm seeing. Do you feel the difference? One version asks permission to exist, and the other version stewards clarity. The second low authority habit is this, overqualifying. This sounds something like, I could be wrong, but, well, I'm no expert. This is probably silly, but I don't know if this matters, but maybe it's just me, but sometimes qualification is appropriate. But we should not pretend certainty when we don't have it. That's different. That's integrity. But many of us qualify things we actually do know. We soften conviction because we fear reaction. We bury insight because we fear rejection. We dilute wisdom because we fear being perceived as too much. And let me say this, Christian humility is not pretending you don't know what God has placed on you. Humility is not hiding fruit. Humility is not denying experience. Humility is not acting clueless so other people feel comfortable. Biblical humility is agreement with truth. That means I don't exalt myself, but I also don't lie about what God has developed in me. And if you have studied, suffered, prayed, led, learned, failed, grown, repented, rebuilt, and paid attention, stop introducing every sentence like it has no weight. You can say, from my experience, what I've observed, one pattern I'm noticing is my recommendation is it may be worth considering. That's not arrogance. That's clarity. And clarity is loving. The third low authority habit is this: turning statements into questions. Right? Like, so we may need to change the plan, turns into, I don't know, but your voice goes up at the end of the sentence, like you're asking a question. There's nothing wrong with collaboration. There's nothing wrong with inviting others' feedback. But when every statement sounds like a question, people can't tell whether you're leading, suggesting, doubting, retreating. And there's a deeper issue. Sometimes when we turn statements into questions, we're trying to avoid responsibility for being clear, because clarity costs something sometimes. And if I state what I believe, someone has the right to disagree. And what if someone might challenge me? If I lead, someone may not like it. So I float the idea instead of standing in it. But Jesus didn't say, let your yes be maybe. He said, let your yes be yes. Your voice needs to have a period at the end of the sentence, not a question mark, not a nervous laugh, not a verbal escape route, a period. Try this instead. I think we should probably follow up with her instead of, I think we should probably follow up with her. The next right step is different. You could, instead of saying, I don't know, but maybe we should wait, you could say, I recommend that we wait until we get more information. Clean, clear, sturdy, not rude. You're being responsible. The fourth low authority habit is this: over-explaining. This is one that gets a lot of us. I do this. Some of us live so long around people who misunderstand us, accused us, controlled us, criticized us, required emotional proof from us, that now we explain everything to death. We defend, we perform, we over communicate, we build a legal case for what we're trying to say. It's ridiculous. I've done this too much. We say things like, well, maybe I was just thinking that I didn't want you to feel that, like, what are you even saying? That's just a word salad. Get yourself out of the courtroom. You don't need to defend yourself. You just say, that doesn't work for me if you don't agree with somebody, or I'm not able to commit to that, or I need to pass this time. And yes, some people will not like it. That doesn't mean you were wrong. It just means that you need to have boundaries. Here's a hard question. Are you explaining because clarity is needed, or are you explaining more because you're afraid someone else will be disappointed or offended? Those aren't the same thing. Jesus was not unclear. He was compassionate. He was not manipulated, though. He was loving, but he was not frantic. He was available to his Father, but not enslaved to every human demand. That matters, because a restored life doesn't just have better thoughts. It has better boundaries, and better boundaries require cleaner language. The fifth low authority habit is this: speaking from an old identity instead of a renewed identity. This is the root, because speaking habits are not random. They come from somewhere deep within. If you believe you are a burden, then you'll apologize before you even speak. If you believe that you're not enough, you will over-explain to try to add value. If you think you're always a mistake, you will overqualify everything. If you believe your needs are dangerous, you will soften every boundary. If you believe confidence is arrogance, you will keep shrinking and call it godliness. This is where we need to renew our mind. Romans 12:2 does not say, be transformed by trying to sound more confident. It says transformed by the renewing of your mind. So this is not about a communication trick. This is about identity, because your mouth will eventually reveal what's in your mind. Jesus said, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And yes, that's so true. What belief trained me to speak this way? You could ask yourself. What fear am I trying to manage? What reaction am I trying to prevent? What identity am I agreeing with when I speak like this? Because the goal isn't to sound just powerful. The goal is to become whole. The goal is not to just be impressive. The goal is to steward your voice. The goal is not to dominate others. It's to stop partnering with fear. This is where salt and light becomes practical. Reveal. Notice the phrase you keep using. Do you say, sorry, all the time? Do you say, I could be wrong, when you actually know exactly what you're talking about? Do you end a statement like it's a question? Do you explain every boundary like you're on trial? Do you laugh in a nervous way after every serious statement to make people less uncomfortable? Reveal it without shame. Awareness is not condemnation. It's an invitation. Reset. Ask what agreement is underneath it. Is it fear of rejection? Fear of being misunderstood? Fear of being called prideful? fear of conflict or being too much or being wrong, name the root, because you cannot renew what you refuse to reveal. Renew, replace the phrase, not with harshness, with clarity. Not, sorry, I just wanted to ask, but I have a question. Not, I could be wrong, but here's what I'm noticing. I don't know if this makes sense, but let me say this clearly. Feel the difference? So this matters because does that make sense? Can sometimes sound like you don't trust yourself. Instead of saying, this might be crazy, but it's just a small shift. Restore. Practice speaking from your renewed identity. You're not a beggar. You're not an inconvenience. You're not a burden. You're not a little girl or a little boy waiting for permission. You're not you're the daughter or the son of the Most High God. You have wisdom, experience, and an assignment on your life. It's not arrogance. Authority under God is not arrogance. There's a difference. And for some of us, we need to stop confusing confidence with pride because the enemy has been using that confusion to keep us quiet. Here's a practical action this week. Pick one phrase that you're going to stop using. Just one. Don't try to fix everything. Pick one. Maybe it's, sorry, can I? Or maybe it's, I could be wrong, but maybe it's, this is probably dumb, but, or does that make sense? Maybe it's over-explaining your no. Write it down. Write a replacement. For the next 7 days, practice replacing out loud, not just in your head, out loud, because our nervous system needs experience. It needs experience of you speaking with clarity. Some of us don't need another confidence quote. We need repetition of a new agreement. We need to hear ourselves say, I have a question. I recommend this. No, I'm not available. Here's what I'm seeing. That does not work for me. I need to think about that. I need to have time to clear my decisions. That's how an identity gets embodied. This is how our mouth stops rehearsing the old story. Because our words are not just neutral. They're either reinforcing fear or practicing freedom. So here's the call to action this week. Pay attention to your language. Don't obsess. Do not shame yourself. Just notice. Where do you shrink? Where do you soften something that God's actually gave you clarity on? Where do you apologize for having a voice? Where do you turn a statement into a question? What are you afraid to stand in? Just choose one better sentence. A restored life doesn't happen through vague inspiration. It happens through spirit-led practice. Before we close, let me speak this over you. You do not need to be louder to be stronger. You do not need to be harsher to be clear. You do not need to be someone else. You just may need to stop speaking from the version of you that was trained to survive. Your voice is part of your stewardship. Your clarity is part of your obedience. Your words are part of your witness. So stop talking like fear still owns the room. You belong to God. Speak like someone who knows it. This is Salt and Light. Rewired Mind, Restored Life. If this episode helped you, share it with someone who you think it may benefit. And this week, choose your replacement phrase, one new agreement, one step toward freedom, because the renewed mind should eventually have a renewed mouth and a renewed life. My whole life until 5 years ago, I was so prideful. I was prideful because I was so broken. I was mean at times to protect myself. I was always in fight or flight. I was in survival mode. And so I built up coping mechanisms. And so I came across as confident and arrogant at times, but it was just a show to protect a scared little girl. So once I was saved, I had a real hard time determining what was arrogance versus assignment. And it's taken me a few years, but it's very clear to me now that I can be bold and still be obedient. I can have a voice and still be respectful. As long as what I'm doing magnifies the Lord, I'm going to still keep stepping out in boldness. And I hope that you can start speaking with authority as well. I hope this blesses you. Take good care.